Ralph, speaking of foreign competition, I wanted to ask you about health care as it relates to the auto industry, but then overall. You have Chrysler and Ford paying more for health care than they pay for steel. They can't compete with the foreign auto manufacturers because those companies come from countries where the government pays for health care. Can you talk about this issue in that context? And then overall, the lack of a full discussion in the media around the issue of what single payer is and where President Obama stands on this.
Another anomaly, Amy, the auto giants could have relieved themselves of maybe $1,500 a car if they pushed for full Medicare for all, the way the foreign auto companies have availed themselves in Europe and Japan, where they have universal health care. The problem is that the auto company executives have never wanted to take on the health insurance giants because, as we all know, single payer puts the health insurance companies out of the arena. It displaces them. They're gone, just like early Medicare in the mid-'60s for the elderly displaced, except for the Medicare gaps, displaced the health insurance companies from selling insurance to older people. So they didn't want to take on a big industry because obviously there could be retaliation. It'd be a corporate war against one and all. Unfortunately, that was a bad mistake. SinglePayerAction.org is the grassroots effort in this country to put this on the table. Obama doesn't want to even discuss it. Congress doesn't want to discuss it. Nancy Pelosi told a group of reporters last week, all we hear is single payer, single payer, single payer. Well, it's not going to be single payer. Those were almost her exact words. Even though a majority of the Americans favor single payer, a majority of nurses and doctors favor single payer, and a majority of health economists favor single payer. It's more efficient. It's more humane. It saves thousands of lives a year that are lost because people do not have health insurance, and it gives people their free choice of doctor and hospital. In other words, it's public funding of health care with private delivery by doctors and hospitals. But you see, when Obama doesn't take a comprehensive approach here, when he's always going forward one, going backward one, unsure of himself ideologically, not wanting to take on corporate power, the situation becomes even worse. And the auto industry, domestic auto industry situation is not that difficult. They're going to have to shrink the size of General Motors, obviously Ford and Chrysler, but they still have half the U.S. market, and it's just a matter of getting rid of their financial speculations with their financial arms and getting down to the business of producing good cars. They have good scientists and engineers. The auto suppliers are the great innovators, by the way, in the auto industry, not the auto manufacturers, and they ought to heed their lessons and their suggestions as well. Instead, it's becoming very, very complex, very insecure, and now it's in bankruptcy court where it's out of the control significantly of the Obama administration.
Ralph Nader, on another major consumer issue, the House of Representatives yesterday passed legislation to rein in abuses by credit card companies. Your sense of that legislation, will it pass the Senate, and does it have enough teeth to deal with the problem?
It doesn't have enough teeth to deal with the problem because it does not provide for the organization of credit card holders. That is, the consumers themselves have got to be given facilities under this bill to join their own full-time consumer groups so they can have their own attorneys, economists, lawyers to monitor the system. The credit card companies are fine print experts. They are so slippery. You can stop them in one way, it'll come up with another. Look at all the fees and the penalties that already exist. The other thing is, is there going to be adequate enforcement? The Federal Reserve over the years has had, and the Federal Trade Commission has had some jurisdiction. They haven't enforced existing laws. So this bill is a step forward, clearly. It bans retroactive interest, for example, but it still does not rewrite the contract by saying, look, there are some provisions between credit card holders and you, the consumer, that are unconscionable, and they are going to be prohibited. There's a long tradition of the Federal Trade Commission doing this with particular industries, so there's nothing new about it. And this bill doesn't go that far. It's going to run into trouble in the Senate because you have some Democrats, like Senator Johnson from South Dakota, where there's a credit card industry, who is going to be able to obstruct it. And he's not the only one that's going to obstruct it. So easier passage through the House than the Senate.
We want to thank you, Ralph Nader, for being with us. Ralph Nader joining us, longtime consumer advocate and many-time presidential candidate. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. We're broadcasting from New York and from Madison, Wisconsin, where the Progressive is celebrating 100 years. We're going to go to a brief music break. Before you heard Dar Williams, who sang last night for a big opening celebration of the Progressive. And then we'll be joined by the longtime editor of the Progressive, Matt Rothschild. Stay with us.